Hey food fans, welcome to Cooking Like a Pro with Chef Cal and me, Mrs. Chef, his wife Christa DeMercurio. We're dishing out culinary intuition, insights, and imagination to spice up your meals and make cooking more fun. On today's episode, my chef husband and I are guests on the North State Now radio show. Join us and our host, Linda Bott, and get to know a little bit more about Chef and Mrs. Chef. Let's dig in. Today's episode was broadcast and recorded live on AM/FM radio.
How are you? This is Linda Bott here on KCNR 96.5 FM, 1460 AM, and your talk radio streaming always at KCNR1460.com. Well, you know, it's January and we start thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my diet? We have gorged, we have overdone, we have, well, I can speak for myself. So how many of you really have been, I don't want to say strict, but have been, unless you really deal like maybe with a kind of a condition where you know that you can't eat thing, where you know you have to be strict. Otherwise, it's just kind of like there's stuff out on the table and there's drinks pouring. It's just like, sure. And then it becomes a big slippery slope for many of us. It just seems to be kind of a mindset that when the new year happens that we start thinking about taking back control of our health, our wellness, our good deeds that we're doing, etc. And so that it's a perfect time to have these two individuals on the show, on my show. Now, they do have their own show here on this very station, but tonight I'm interviewing them, and that is Chef Cal DeMercurio and his beautiful bride, Christa. So welcome to the show.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, yeah,
Wonderful
thank you
to be
very
here.
much.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be here, Linda.
So we are, before you came on, we were talking about this book that, let's just go right back to there, because you, which I think is fascinating. There's a book, well, let's talk about your website first of all, and that you you are going to be writing your own book. Is this correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so you've got a book on there now about how to make vegetables taste so good. Do you want to share with our listeners what that means? And then we're going to go back in about your 45 years of professional experience plus, you know, I'm sure it's more than that, because when does food become your passion? How does it start? Why did you become who you are?
At a very young age. But yeah, the book I've been working on for a while, so we hope to have that out sometime towards summer. But everything kind of comes from our website. Originally started Culinarily Yours, because that's the way I used to sign menus when I was competing. And then I'm not a techie person, so I'll hand this over to my wife because, my wife, Christa, she goes by Mrs. Chef. And she can tell you everything you need to know about where you can find, our podcast, which we do here. We do every Wednesday at 5.
Fantastic.
Yep, and that's
yes, you
Cooking Like a Pro.
Yeah, and so I put together this vegetable booklet. So he's working on his cookbook. That's one project, and the website is my baby that I run everything through, and so digital downloads are my thing. So one of my questions that popping up lately was, what do I do with vegetables other than just put cheese on them? I'm like, well, you know what? Let's try and take a look at this and come up with some ideas. And lo and behold, after a few months, I have a 28-page booklet download available online on our website, Culinarily Yours.
So this is a fantastic thing. People can come onto your website, okay, so you've got like sections that are pickling and fermenting, salads, vinaigrettes, the whole enchilada, which, you know, meal preparation, when to cook things and what order. So it's pretty, and what's nice is that it's 18 to 20 pages.
It's 28 pages.
How many?
28 pages.
28? Oh my gosh. Okay, I wrote down two things. Spaghetti squash.
Yeah.
So there is a full walkthrough on how to think about a spaghetti squash, how to prepare it different ways, different things you can do to it, different ways you can adapt it, make it a main meal, make it a side dish, to making vegetables more front of mind instead of just, I'm going to put some broccoli and carrots on the side.
Yeah, and I think the entire show kind of, Linda, goes that direction. Is let's demystify cooking. Let's make it simpler. Let's make it easier. Let's make it fun. You know, instead of, and I guess we'll start off with this here, is that in Europe they have this quote. In America, it's a similar quote. In America, we eat to live. We eat for energy. We eat so we can keep moving. All right. Well, in Europe, it's the opposite. They live to eat. They go through their jobs. They go through the day. But the highlight of their days are these beautiful meals and fellowship and family and all of that and the gathering. And I think that we've really gotten away from that in the country. And if we can help in any way be able to convince people, then that would be great.
I think we talked about that. I was watching a documentary recently, and I haven't finished it. It's just on the first. It's like a series of a documentary about twins and how they put them on different diets. They basically go through all of everything you could possibly test and to see. I've only watched the first series, like I said so far, but it is very interesting and they're all in America. So when we think about the fact that in Europe, we all know that if you've ever gone, you don't eat till 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And they have siestas, and they start later in the day. And that they in this documentary, they talk about how, so far that I've seen, about how food changed with the war. When World War II happened, and then we started with faster food, TV dinners, hot dogs, that became a way of life.
Convenience, prepackaged items.
Exactly, and not nutritious at all.
No.
So I would think that getting a cookbook on how to make vegetables fun would be great for your family.
Well, there's so many different flavors. There's so many different flavors you can explore and things that are out there. And you look at things that are seasonal. They just started doing the farmers market here in town.
They did?
Year round.
Year round.
Yay.
Yeah. So it's year round, so you can get things that are being grown. So you're looking at things that don't have the pesticides and they're grown in better soil. And then they also don't, of course, have things like preservatives. And that's one of the things that people need to get away from processed foods. And it's the process that takes these foods and destroys their nutritional value.
You know, I don't know. I have to work on that with my husband, and I wonder if because he was in the military for so long. Because I think about when we go buy cheese, he'll just buy that big old block of the cheapest cheese that you can get, and I think why do you do that? But I don't want to judge him because that's his thing. But I would, it's instead of really thinking about the taste of great cheese.
Yeah, a big part of that, Linda, is that we're creatures of habit.
Yes.
In so many ways, we're creatures of habit. Whether it's it's Friday night, we go to a particular restaurant, or we always go here, or wherever it is. They say that 90% of a person's life is lived within 5-10 miles of their house.
Okay.
So as creatures of habit, that's just how it started. But we want to break that habit because we want to see people get to a point where they're enjoying and this. I will put it this way: that I think the country started falling apart when families quit eating together.
Yes, I agree.
Because they lost that communication.
The table time.
Exactly. And I think we need to get back to that, and that's really what we're trying to do on the show.
Okay, I like that because I think that I'll never forget. I could have been RFK. Somebody talking about that the most memorable time of his growing up was no matter how busy his father was, there always was the table. At nighttime, he was home for dinner with 8 or 10 or 15 people at the table, and that was their time to commune.
Exactly.
And I think it's important spiritually to connect us that way. I mean, you could be having a crummy day rather than hiding in your room and eating fast food and being on a device. Is to take that time, that sacred time of that hour and a half, and that way you can kind of, even if somebody doesn't even talk, you're still in a being around that person, almost like you're blanketing that person with food, with communion.
Well, stop and think about it. Whenever you go to somebody's house, where does everybody end up?
Kitchen.
In the kitchen. That's where everybody goes and hangs out. Maybe a couple of people go sit and watch TV, but everybody goes and sits at the kitchen counter.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's what draws us together. It's a common denominator.
Is it a comfort? Do you think that's just American?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing that you're going to do more than eat in your life. You might, other than perhaps sleep. Yeah, and maybe work. But food is such a monumental thing that we have to go through. Why not enjoy it? And if you're going to enjoy it, it's not just enjoying the food and the flavors and getting more in depth with things that we discussed in this vegetable booklet, with things like what kind of seasonings do you want to try. You can take the same ingredient like cauliflower and turn it into a steak. You can turn it into a puree. You can bake it. You can steam it. So just trying different things and different flavors. And I think that goes a long way to us enjoying that. And then you add the fellowship. Again, I know I've mentioned that a few times, but that's really what it is people need to communicate. They need to get together in the family. You didn't eat if you weren't at the table on time.
There's two main common languages throughout the entire world: food and music.
Oh, true.
So it's a gathering thing that we can all speak. We all speak food.
We all speak food, and you don't have to speak.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's a way of communication.
Let's talk a little bit about your Italian heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us.
Well, when you're Italian, there's a variety of things. First off, you eat a lot of food, but it's a loud family, all right? And it came from my dad's father was from Sicily.
Okay.
And so from Sicily came to San Francisco, and then my family came out of San Francisco. And one of our favorite family dishes is cioppino.
Ooh.
And so my family were fishermen, and they would go out and...
It's my dad's favorite.
Oh, and whatever they would catch, the fishermen, when they got back to the dock, most people don't know this, is they would trade. Like this guy got crab, and this person got snapper or rockfish, and this person got, clams, and then they would trade a little bit, and they would make this fish stew. So that's where cioppino came from in my family. And it's just been, part of the heritage. And then again, just growing up from there, we always had our fresh milk delivered, in the little glass bottles, here in Redding, Hopkins Dairy.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone out there remembers Hopkins Dairy, but it was before McCall's, and they would deliver the milk at the front door. So that it's completely unprocessed,
right.
Beautiful food. We're going out and we're hunting a lot of things. And life was just a lot different, but it seemed to be a little slower maybe.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we just had a little bit different. Our pulse was different. And probably when I think about it, healthier. We played outside, and we didn't, again, processed foods were not really that much in the vocabulary. But what brought you to Redding?
I've been here my whole life. If I was born in San Jose, I was 3 pounds, 1/2 ounce. Yeah, it wasn't even a good sized tri-tip. And then as soon as they got me out of the house, they moved up here. Most of my family worked at the Calvert cement plant.
Okay.
My uncles, my brothers, my dad,
All
my
right.
grandpa. And again, hunting was just a big thing, but we're in Redding, we're in Northern California, so it was going to the coast to fish.
Right.
And more importantly, abalone.
Yes.
Yeah, I got abalone diving. It was always a part of it, and catching crab, and then, going in the streams, Trinity River. And now remember, Linda, this was back when the limit on fish that you could catch depended on the size of your ice chest.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could catch as many as you could. Mom would clean the guts out, cook them, and we'd eat them head and tail and all. So it was a lot different, but there's so many resources up here.
And we still have those as well.
Exactly.
So now, Christa, you enter in the picture. How did the two of you meet?
I'm born and raised also from here, down in the Dershowitz Deschutes area between Palo Cedar and Anderson. And I was going to church that I've grown up in, a little country church, and one day I walked past him and I introduced myself because I was working with his sister, his sister-in-law, and I said, "Hey, I've been talking to your sister-in-law, and I'd like to introduce myself." And he was like, "Wow." He didn't know what to say because I was in business, so I just walked up, stuck up my hand, to shake his hand, and he's like, "Wait, what?"
What was your business, or what is your business?
Mostly marketing.
So that's a perfect marriage, where you're doing the art and the creating, and then you have this beautiful person that you can pair with and have a relationship with, and a passion that shares your passion and can market for you.
Yeah, it's really bloomed out of that too. It's bloomed out to the point where I do what's in the kitchen, and Christa does everything else with the marketing. And I mean, we're on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and I'm not on any of those. Okay, but she's on all of those, and it's a big part of what we got going together. It's kind of like I guess we fill each other's spaces here.
Well, this whole thing came about because even though I was more front of the house, service type stuff and the marketing and the office operations, I got to take over the school lunch program for my son's school, and I turned to him and went, help? What do I do? So he came in and helped me get the program started, and I started watching him going, he moves different. He talks different. He thinks different about food. I'm like, I want to know more about this because I was a home cook. I mean, I'm a solid cook. I can follow any recipe you give me. I grew up in the kitchen. My mom, my grandma, me, my dad, we all cooked together. And so for us, it wasn't coming together at the table. It was an entire evening in the kitchen together, all the way from prep to cleanup. Everything was done together as a family.
Yeah.
So I had an understanding of food, but not commercially, not to the extent that he does. So I came up to him, I think it was like 2018. I don't do the New Year's resolutions, but I came up to him on January 1st and said, should you choose to accept, I want to learn how to cook professionally, commercially, like you. I will lay aside my ego, and I will not let my feelings get hurt.
That's a big thing.
That was the big thing. Like, I will just listen, and I will just do what I'm told and learn.
Right.
And we did that, and even today we're still doing that, and that's how Culinarily Yours was born. And, even though I had to kind of pull back a little bit on the website, we started out doing, back when there was like Julie and Julia out, the movie, where she was following through Julie Child's cookbook.
Great movie. Watched it recently.
Mm-hmm.
So
again,
based upon that movie, it's like, well, so are you going to start a blog? And I went, oh, okay. So I started blogging. And then, but the blogging kind of fell on the wayside when I was working more full time at the school. But now we're picking back up, and I'm trying to do a more concerted effort to get the information out there.
love that. I mean, we can all really relate to Julia. Yeah, it was Julia.
Mm-hmm.
Julie and Julia.
Yeah, it was just a fantastic movie. And, to see what she went through. And so let me ask you, two things came to mind while you were talking, Christa, is about the student program for lunches. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to do that.
He was in a private school, and they had the position open up. The principal knew that I was into food and, being married to Cal. So he's like, hey, you want to take over the lunch program? I said, sure.
So what did you implement? I know that we used to, in my day, if you did the lunch program, you could take your tray and you always had something hot. It seemed like to be balanced where I grew up, but I don't know, what did you implement in that?
Well, because we were a smaller school, we didn't have, the traditional lunch program like that with, running down the line and, get your little thing of milk at the end. What we would do is, we started developing a menu. And it was every month there was a full menu, and so we had about 16 to 20 rotating items. And there was certain things. There was always Taco Tuesday because that's what the kids wanted.
Oh, that's cool.
There was always pizza on Friday. There was always hamburgers once a month.
Oh, you had something to look forward to, like you knew. You could circle your calendar.
So
Great.
I wrote a menu for every single month, and then I scheduled parent volunteers to help me every single month. And I did the shopping every single month, and the cooking, and the cleaning, and the washing, and the bagging. So it was.
Do you miss it?
No.
Well, I don't know. I missed it quite a bit. I mean, these little kids, when they're like in kindergarten, it's like got to be the best time.
Yeah.
Right? They come running up
They're innocent.
They're so excited, and they're lining up, and they're just, and they're, So that was enough to sell me.
I missed what I did, and the program that we built, it was so popular, and they loved it so much. But it's a lot of work.
Of course.
To understand, going to Costco and going to Cash and Carry and Winco almost every single day, and then doing $1,000 orders at the beginning of the month, and it wasn't Cisco driving up and dropping off at the back door. No, it was me getting in the car, going to Costco,
Got it.
loading up a big old orange cart and taking it back. So it was a lot of physical work. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, too, about cooking and commercial cooking. It is very physical. It is like construction. And you have days that, for him, sometimes he would start at 3 in the morning and be gone till 10 at night.
Yeah, I have a
girlfriend. It is very physical.
Who owns a restaurant that's, I think, celebrating 30 years now. After all this time, she goes to Costco. She goes to Cash and Carry, whatever it's called now. And I think about that sometimes, about the physicality of what that is, and then having to go through your list and then balance at the end of the day from the restaurant. Just the intense work. Of course, you're only as good as your team. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that what you need to have is a servant's heart. You need to be a person of hospitality, because if not, it's just too hard of a job, because you need to be able to have, first off, really thick skin, which we had at a family restaurant, so I recommend that for anyone that wants to thicken their skin. But that was decades ago. But again, it is something that you need to enjoy doing, because I teach a lot. I've taught for 40 years as well. And I always tell kids the same thing. Find something you love to do, and you'll never have to work another day in your life. So come up with something. If you like to connect with people, great. If you like it outside, be a park ranger. If you like little kids, be a school teacher. But those, and for food, because it's so demanding, as my wife Christa said, you really need to have a reason and a passion. And that's what excites me.
And you're going to be writing, you are in the midst of about ready to release a book.
Yeah, we're looking to get it out by summer.
Okay. And in that book, is it basically about you and your life and recipes, or tell us what makes your book different?
And thank you for asking that, but because it is very, very different in its thought. It's 4 different components. It's a cookbook, but it's also just as much a storybook. And it's a passion, which is also very much the same, a legacy. So those are the 4 directions that it came from how I was raised, how I feel the way that I do, and then to the professional side of, competing 15 years in Europe. I worked with the best literally in the world, and you glean so much information off these people, and you're able to bring it back to Redding, California, and to be able to use it. But the legacy part, I know I've been to restaurants before, and I've heard people say this, that they'll say, hey, to ask the chef if I could have that recipe, and then it'll come back and the chef says, no, you can't have it. And I'm like, well, I could live till I'm 100 years old. I will not know a tenth of what there is to know about cooking. It's just too vast. So for someone to say, I'm not going to share that, it stops the legacy. And all of a sudden there's that, to me, it's a sadness. And I have a quick story on that, where my grandpa showed me how to make this barbecue sauce. But he never wrote it down. Oh. And he passed away real tragically in a boating accident. And one of the things that really saddened me was I was never able to see this barbecue sauce / marinade he did. And probably 15 years later, my mom had given me a book from her grandmother that was a home, what do they call those home books back then?
I think it was like a Sunset Barbecue type,
yeah,
all-encompassing, how to do everything book.
Yeah, good housekeeping or something. But what it did was, it would show you how to fix your lawnmower, how to, make a pot roast, and then also how to paint. So they were all encompassing books.
Life skills.
Yeah, life skills. Kind of like the Boy Scouts.
We need those now.
Yeah. So I was flipping through this book, and all of a sudden I turned to this page. This is getting almost, and it's
a God thing.
It's a picture of, it's a barbecue sauce recipe, and Grandpa's fingerprints are all over both pages in barbecue sauce.
Oh man.
So that's the legacy part of it, and there's tons of stories. I just a real short quick one. I remember some folks coming up from Cottonwood, and it was DeMercurio's restaurant, kind of an upper scale restaurant at the time. This is back in the 90s, and I walk up and I do what's called table touching. You go out and you talk to every table that's out there.
Ooh, I haven't heard that expression.
You need to talk to everybody, because it's important. You need to be able to connect, make sure they enjoyed everything. So I walked up to this couple, and they were a couple. And I'm taking me in a night. They were a little shabbily dressed for an upscale restaurant, but I mean it was fine.
Right.
But anyway, I walk up to them, and they had a yard sale. They lived in Cottonwood. They had a yard sale to raise money to come to my restaurant for their first wedding anniversary.
I love that.
So it's those.
That's honor.
It's those kind of things that we get to be involved in, and it's just littered with those throughout the book.
Well, now is there? We see this in there's the television show called The Bear.
Yes, I watch it.
Okay. So, and you do this, did you do this left, right, corner?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Behind you, sharp, corner.
Right.
We always do time out, and that's one of the times out. And like how long before the food is ready.
Okay.
And we use a term like where the server grabs the food from and the cook puts the food up to, it's called the window.
Okay.
So as I was training my wife, as she had mentioned earlier, I had asked her this is quite a while back, I said, when's Isaac going to be ready for school? And she goes, 15 minutes to the window.
Okay.
So it's like 15 minutes, he'll be ready to take out.
So in other words, when you think about that window where the food is now on being ready to be served, like the server has to get it to the table. In that period of time, if you stay too long at the window, now your food is cold.
That's when it's maximum. It's at its best when it's in the window.
Yes.
And that's why you have a position, I always did, called an expediter, which makes sure that people are ready for the food.
Yes.
So it comes out and goes out immediately.
Yeah. So,
and that's one of the and hot food in a hot plate and cold food in cold plate. I can't tell you. I went to a local restaurant and had mac and cheese dish. This is a while back.
Right.
But the bowl was cold.
Yes.
So that dish is only going to stay, the food's only going to stay hot so long. And that's a pretty simple thing.
Yeah.
That's actually the first thing I was ever
Right.
taught.
Right.
Hot food on hot plates, cold food on cold plates.
Right.
And when you're at home, do the same thing. Don't take a cold plate out of the cabinet, set it down, put hot food on it. Boom. Your food's cold.
I always put mine in the microwave.
Put in the microwave, put in the oven, little toaster oven.
It makes a difference.
Yeah. So farmers market. Now, do you guys go every week?
No, it's early in the morning, and usually Saturdays we've always got something scheduled. Saturdays it's like, I can't
I've
go
got to
again.
get back. I'm so happy that you brought that up because just like you about getting the freshest ingredients.
Yeah. And
we try to make it a point. We literally put it on the calendar to go. If there is a weekend we don't have something going on and have to go somewhere, then yes, it is on the calendar to go.
So on your website, you're talking about the intricacies, also about wine pairing.
Oh, yes.
Is that something that you're still involved in?
Yeah. We actually have been doing classes. We've done some online, especially when COVID was here.
Mm-hmm.
We did some things with that, and we've also participated in some with other people that put them on. I ran a winery for 2 years in Napa Valley.
Okay.
And I learned everything from vineyard management to bottling to everything in between and refractometers, and it was amazing. So I've always loved the dynamic between food and wine, because if you do like wine, the right wine will always dramatically enhance the right food. But how do you choose?
Yeah, how do you choose?
Well, there's two different ways. There's either similar or it's complex. So it's similar flavor, like I'm having a nice scallop dish and a cream sauce, so I'm going to have a nice creamy, buttery Chardonnay that goes with that, right? So that's a similar. A contrast would be spicy Asian food and plum wine. Plum wine, of course, is very sweet, or maybe you'd have a Riesling or a Gewürztraminer. So it's either the opposite to help it meet in the middle, or the same to just help it keep going down the same trail.
Well, I think that's a whole other show, actually. I've always been confused about wine because I kind of like either a Chardonnay or like a real bold Cabernet. And I know several friends that they love to go and they belong to wine clubs and they meet with the people who make the wines and they know about wine releases, and we just aren't those. That's not our thing. But it's wonderful to be around people who can tell you and pair. Like when you do a wine pairing dinner, that's fabulous.
It's always got to be, Linda, to put it this way, the simplest way is, and I have a chapter on this in the book, dinner and a movie. You're always going to have dinner. What's the movie? It used to be in the old days, it was actually a movie. In fact, they used to have this thing called drive-ins, right?
Right.
Okay, so it used to be a movie, dinner and a movie. Now what's that movie? Is the movie a beautiful list of wines that are paired with each course? Is it an actual movie? Is it going out and do something else? Is it the conversation at the table? But what is the kind of the movie the entertainment side of that? And that's what people are looking for.
And not necessarily going to the store on purpose, going, okay, I'm going to start opening the refrigerator and the cabinets, and there's a lot of people that can't do that. They go, without a recipe in front of me, which that's where I was. Originally, I could not function without a recipe. If it said half a teaspoon, I only had a quarter teaspoon, I could not adapt. If it said I needed 2 cups and I only had 3/4 of a cup, I could not adapt.
Poor girl, you had to stretch.
I did, but I could follow any recipe, but that's now getting out of my comfort zone and going, you know what? Hey, I didn't have that ingredient. Let me try this. And now even our son, who's becoming top ramen king, he loves ramen, but he doesn't want to use the packet. He wants to make his own flavoring, his own sauce. So he's pulling ginger out of the cabinet. He's pulling chicken base and curry powder and making all these different flavors. It's like, oh, that didn't work. Well, try that again.
He's like a little mad scientist.
And you have a place that you would recommend for our listeners that where you buy your spices. Cool.
As far as where we shop at Costco for some things.
Right.
Some specific things that you can only get at Costco, like, there's really nice cheese that they have there.
Mm-hmm.
Certain frozen items that we can separate out and use individually and pull a piece out here and there. But mostly, I'll shop at Walmart, Winco.
Yeah.
As far as spices, we go to the Winco bulk section because we can pull out just a couple ounces and refill it. We don't buy a whole big old thing of it unless it's something we really, truly go through a ton of it of.
Yeah.
We don't buy a big giant thing.
And who's got interesting spices is Old World Market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've got some
They pull some stuff from all around the world.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting as well. So, also I want to encourage you because we're wrapping it up right now. And again, thank you for joining us today, Chef Cal DeMercurio and Christa, Mrs. Chef. And I love the fact that you've got this book. You can read up on this, and you can go to their website, How to Make Vegetables Taste Good. It's a 28-page download. And I really appreciate you guys joining us today.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. Until next time, we hope you'll be cooking up a storm in the kitchen. So we'll be with you again next week with food, flavor, and fun right here on Cooking Like a Pro podcast.